I was once a hidden secret, but now I am about to become the queen of all the packs. In my story, there's a stunning twist. I am not only the Wolf King's mate, but I also command the cursed creatures, the lycans. Chapter 50. Aftermath. At the witch's coven, why would the goddess give a ruler to the lycans? Ebony asked, confused. Normally, the small kitten was one who easily understood things, but this time it still slipped past her. To a agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The intentions of the higher being, lycans. They were made by foolish werewolves, but they themselves have done nothing wrong by simply living. But even if they have done nothing wrong at the beginning, and also their consequent killings and destruction are also without their fault, they should still be controlled, though their existence is still at the border between the supernatural world and the human one. So who of the two worlds could accept them? Where could they continue to exist? And most importantly, who could give them a structured hierarchical society? By doing this, she has made a compromise to give a home to them. And that compromise is the existence of Celia. Celia holds the power to command them, because the goddess, taboo, only mentioned killing the werewolf, and not a lycan who was made by his sin. As the lycans were not creatures under the goddess' rule, they could very well rampant everywhere without punishments, consequences for not abiding the laws previously. But now, she made a compromise to accept the army of lycans as part of the supernatural world, and at the same time constrain them. Also, if other werewolves were to try to make lycans again, it would be for nothing, as the new lycans would also be under Celia's rule, and could not arbitrarily be used as a weapon, Clarissa affirmed. After some moments, Ebony was surprised of the insight Clarissa had given her, but even more surprised that the latter had explained to her in so many details. Usually, the explanations of the bubbly witch would be so succinct that they would confuse you more than enlighten you. At Fenrir's place, the werewolves were shaken to their core. The newly appeared lycan transformed herself into a wolf, and easily made them kneel. How could it be possible? How could they so easily succumb to her power? The only werewolf that could make them submit by only using a howl. The only one with this amount of awe was their king. But thinking a bit more about it, with their thoughts spiraling in all directions, they realized that another werewolf could also hold this power. The person they had come to rescue. Their queen. If it was her, then the act of submitting was only natural. All of them were shaken to their core, as the awareness of the identity of the powerful person that stood upon the wall traveled to all of them. Even the few ones still confused grasped the situation. When Sala's mind linked the whole pack and confirmed her position. Bow to your queen, and cease all resistance. Sala's ordered them. Celia had went ahead of him, anxious to stop the fight as soon as possible, and seeing her aura, her real power for the first time, and also quickly grasping her dual role as the leader of both races, he had agreed to her wish. Exiting the fortress and coming near Celia's wolf, Salazar's midnight wolf approached his mate's face, caressing it with his own, confirming for all the present werewolves, the new wolf was indeed his queen and removing all doubts of her legitimacy, if there were any, considering to how easily they had submitted to her. The two wolves, one next to the other with contrasting colored furs, black and white, total opposite, would normally seem as different as night and day. One seemed soft and elegant, while the other solemn and stern, but in their eyes they were like the two pieces of a whole. They completed each other, like the night sky and the moon. With the confirmation that the lycans were under Celia's complete control as was Fenrir, Sala's mind linked the werewolf, ordering them to return. Many of them were injured and tired, so considering their presence was no longer needed, they could leave to their homes. The explanations would come a bit later. After they sorted the situation with the lycans, the werewolves immediately left, at Salazar's command, although they were curious about the new queen and had wanted to see her real face. The only ones who knew of her real identity were Gabriel, the council members, Celia's watcher pack and several werewolves from the academy. But those were under the command of a higher-ranked werewolf, and they could not spread information about her even to their families, much less other werewolves. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. To have a queen so strong that she even had dominion over the lycans, who wouldn't want to know about her? But of course, none would voice their opinion in front of the two royals. They could only wait for the queen to be presented to them officially. Most likely, soon enough the queen would step up in her rightful place as the Luna of all the pack, who would know that the king would not share their thoughts, and the soon presumed official presentation of the queen would happen much later. The petty king would not permit anyone to know of her identity and would hide her away in the royal palace for quite some time. As the majority of the werewolves retreated, the only ones left behind remained the council members and Gabriel. Just like the rest of the werewolves, even Gabriel and the council members had not expected this outcome, this peaceful ending, but what they least anticipated was for their queen to be such a special existence. They knew the identity of the queen, but none would have guessed her powers. With almost all the werewolves gone, the only ones who remained on the snowed ground were lycans. The creatures were still in a kneeling position, and while the werewolves still had some confusion on their faces and a slight reluctance to comply to her words prior to knowing her position, the lycans' faces had no hint of emotions on theirs. The two wolves who descended near them did not feel the discontent, anger or fright. No feelings, a sight that unsettled Celia a bit. She was afraid that they had lost all their humanity, transforming herself once more into her previous almost lycan appearance, as she seemed inclined to think that was the appearance they would most likely listen to. She commanded the lycan that was the closest to her, "Transform into your human self." Celia had no knowledge of lycans. She did not know if the person could even transform himself for herself, but she still tried to verify it. The lycan, with the same lack of emotions as the others, transformed into a beautiful human girl, and contrasting to the lycan form, the girl had tears in her eyes. Celia sighed in relief looking at the beautiful blue-eyed blonde on the ground. It seemed there was still hope for them. They could no longer return to their lives in the human cities, but as long as they could transform into a human and converse with her, then they would still have a future. As in the lycan form, they could not utter the smallest of words. Exchanging some words with the girl, she learned that in the lycan's form they felt compelled to rampage and destroy, but inside their minds their true selves were suppressed, so they could not fight against their instincts. She also learned that, normally, the lycans felt the need to change only when a full moon was present in the sky, or if their master ordered them to. So with some commands from Celia, and her preventing them from their rampage on the full moon, they would be able to lead a somewhat normal life. At this point, the council members and Gabriel had gathered close to Celia and Solas, and as soon as she finished her discussion, immediately kneeled before her. This actions surprised Celia a bit. Earlier she had made all the werewolves kneel, but it was not done from her part to demand respect from them. But now the elders kneeled without words from her, making her revert to her normal personality, in the sense that she did not know how to react. She looked at Solas for guidance, but the latter stood silent. It signified that he was approving their action, and it also meant that Celia had to be the one to permit them to stand up. "Why, you can rise," Celia said, with a small tinge of red on her cheeks, losing a bit her composure. But the tactful werewolves only rose obediently at her command, and did not come in to say anything disrespectful. At this time, Solas was savoring her appearance. He felt her fluctuating emotions inside his heart, courtesy of the newly formed bond. "Your Highness, we are so glad you are safe," the leader council member said. The elder was truly happy, as she could see from his moist eyes. The appearance of the stern council members that she had previously witnessed at the opening ceremony could not be felt or seen in this moment. She did not know why, but they resembled more doting grandparents, rather than fearless werewolves. She did not ponder on these thoughts, though. There were still things left to do, the most important being the fate of Crescent. She was anxious to know what had become of her. Leaving some strict commands for the lycans, That included they were not to leave the fortress for any reasons. They were not to hurt anyone, and also imprisoning in the dungeon beneath the fortress the several rogues and other humans that were found by the lycans at her command. The ones that cooperated with Fenrir, Celia and Solas left rushing to the royal palace where Clarissa would wait for them. The witch had already sent one of herders informing them she would come and check the ring. Before leaving the fortress, Celia and Solas also returned to the room where Fenrir was forcefully left kneeling. The reluctant man had given up on trying to free himself from her command, realizing his struggles were futile. With no time to waste, Celia released her kneeling order, but imposed the same commands onto him, as she previously did to the lycans outside. At the royal palace, although fatigued both mentally and physically, the two wolves ran straight to the palace, not stopping until they reached their private quarters, where Clarissa was waiting for them. They did not stop even at the gates. Solas had only mind-linked the guards, and the latter had already opened the gates for them in advance. With the fastest speed possible, the wolves passed by them, as all of the guards were left in awe at the sight of the white wolf that was following closely to the side of their king. The three people and the smoke did not exchange pleasantries. No one was in the mood, so Celia just quickly gave the ring to Clarissa to check it, turning the ring around to examine it for a bit. The witch did not see anything in particular with it, or felt something distinct in its appearance, which was not a good sign at all, as even the blue around the stone had without a trace. It had completely reverted to its previous state. The stone looked exactly as it did before Celia had put it on her finger some weeks ago. The sight of the red stone sent shivers to Celia's heart. She had not dared to look at the ring until this, scared to even check its color. Clarissa sighed. She seemed to have lost all hope of success, but still did the final check. Shakily the witch carefully put the ring on her finger, raising her hand in the air. They stood silent, not even daring to breathe, hoping for it to work. It was like they were waiting for the red stone to show some indication that it held crescent, and the wolf could be transferred to the witch. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Inside their minds they all knew that for the ring to work, they would have to see the reverse process that began when Celia wore it. It meant that the blue color had to return to the edge, letting the red color take over the whole stone again. But now the stone was already red. Seconds passed, then minutes. Not one daring to say that indeed crescent had passed. Celia looked at the stone, with hope at first, then resignation, then sadness. Finally small tears started to slowly fall on her face. Seeing his sad mate, Solas put his hand on her shoulder and gently kissed her temple. He could not offer words of comfort, just be by her side. Celia was at a loss for words, unable to admit the obvious, but still stood rooted in the same place looking at it. Solas, Clarissa and Ebony also did not move at all. 10 minutes had passed, while they were still looking at the ring. But Clarissa still did not feel anything, not even a small magic. At this point, she slowly raised her eyes towards Celia. The girl she had watched grow up had red eyes and was silently weeping. Her tiredness was evident on her face. The power Celia had used, the emotions of being kidnapped and the entire experience that followed were evident on her entire being. She was moments away from collapsing, only being able to still not fall because she was waiting for results. These facts made opening her mouth that much harder for the witch, knowing the words that she was about to say would surely shatter Celia. But it was better than keeping on straining her feelings further. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Crescent. Clarissa was trying to form her words, but found it difficult to say she was not inside the ring, steadying her heart, knowing somebody should eventually still say it. Clarissa again opened her mouth, and with her chin slightly trembling as she was holding back her tears, hoarsely spoke. But Clarissa's words were interrupted when she felt a small portal forming inside her wolf's place. As she kept on looking at the stone, she had also kept focusing her mind on that place. She did not continue talking, waiting to see what was happening first. She feared saying something rashly and renewing Celia's hope, so she focused all her attention on the portal to ascertain the sound she heard. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Carissa finished saying slowly, where a small murmur could be heard from beyond the portal. What? Celia asked, fearing to dare believe her words. She's alive. I can hear her voice. She said for you to not be worried. The bubbly witch's mood completely shifting from sadness to happiness, evident by her huge smile. Celia cried harder, wrapping her arms around Solaz's chest. But her tears of sorrow had transformed in ones of happiness. Her consciousness was barely hanging by a thread. So, with the happy news, Celia finally succumbed to her weariness. Solaz's quickly strength and his hold on her, feeling her weakness, not letting his beautiful mate's body fall to the floor. Wrapping his arms around the small body protectively, Solaz opened his eyes to check her sleeping face. The previous night had taken a huge toll on Celia, and he wanted nothing more to do but hold her in his arms, to feel her, assuring himself she indeed was safe. This was his most fervent wish, but he knew that they had to deal with the aftermath. So even if he did not have the heart to leave her side, he had to. His eyelids opened, and he slowly traced her face from her chin going up. He loved it when he woke up before her, and had the opportunity to admire all her perfect features unhinged, only to discover that Celia was already awake. Her big sparkling eyes were watching him sleep, it seemed. Good morning, he tried to say, with his lips already forming a small smile, but his words were engulfed by her mouth that greedily covered his own. Wrapping his arms around her more forcefully, he happily returned the unexpected kiss that left them both breathless, feeling no more air in her lungs. Only then did Celia remove her lips. As her chest was trying to compensate for the previous lack of air, she had to be the one to take her lips away, because he did not show the slightest of intentions of removing his lips from hers even after moments passed. Seeing the still close small face near his heartbeat increased because of her unexpected boldness, her flushed cheeks, and her red cherry lips, but the words that followed made his heartbeat skyrocket, his eyes widen in amazement, and his mind blank. I love you, the small beautiful voice whispered. It was the first time Celia had expressed her feelings openly towards him, the first time she had uttered the word love with those lips that were left plump and even redder than usual. After the slightly rough kiss, he had told her before how he felt, and even repeated it several more times when they cuddled together. But she never replied, only she lay wrapping around her arms around him, hiding her face in his chest. The cute reaction filled his heart with happiness, so he never demanded to her to reciprocate the words. But hearing them now, he truly felt complete, and overflowed with happiness. He now understood just how she felt when he had said those same words, and why she had not responded. Her confession left him wordless. Wrapping more his arms around her in a hug, he moved his head near the crook of her neck, inhaling the strawberry scent. He also felt shy, and wanted nothing more than to hide his slightly red face. At the age of 100 years old, he was only now feeling what true love meant. Solaz, the small woman whispered, but he did not reply, and only waited for her to speak. I want, her words sending even more ripples to his heart. As she continued, you to mark me, Celia managed to say, waking up first, and seeing him peacefully by her side. She had kept associating the clean image of his present face with the bloody one from the previous night. Her heart kept squeezing at the thought that she had almost lost him. So when he finally woke up, she could not wait any longer. She did not want to wait any longer. Her mark that could be seen on his lean neck, the proof that Solaz was hers, was a proof she had also wanted. The undeniable evidence that she was his, at the words that made him even all fulfilled. If he could possibly be, feeling her determination and the courage of the otherwise shy woman. Solaz did not wait to confirm her words again. Celia was not a person who would ever say something she did not mean. Not leaving his face that was already near the crook of her neck, he slowly opened his mouth, and with his already protruding canines, sunk his fangs in the tender skin. 5 years later, Mom, Brianna shouted, excited, walking fast towards her mother. "What is it?" Diane asked expressionlessly, not sharing one bit her feelings, or having the curiosity for the news Brianna seemed to want to share. "We have an invitation from the palace," Brianna replied, unaffected by her spiritual's mother. "Oh," her mother worded. Indeed, her curiosity was a bit piqued. It was summer now. Usually the king only summoned them to come to the palace for the winter ball. Why would he summon them now? She knew it was indeed a summon, even though the card had written on it in a gold color the word invitation, because of course an invitation was a tactful more word than summon. Although for the king, the two meant the exact same thing. "Yes, look." Brianna opened the card, showing it to her. Diane looked closer, checking the reason for the unexpected summon, her eyes widening in surprise. "His Highness the 17th King of the werewolf race, Salos Christian Wolf, invites the alpha and beta couples of the New Moon Pack to the official introduction of Her Highness, the rightful Luna of all the packs." Chapter 51. The Hidden Queen at Celia's home pack. "Hello, Luna," greeted a well-dressed woman, the even more glamorous-dressed woman in front of her, with clothes that at a glance one could tell cost a fortune, paired with flashy jewelry, and a thick layer of makeup on her face. Brianna turned to the familiar voice that happily called her. She smiled, putting the glass of wine she had in her hand on the table, before kissing the cheeks of her friend, replying to her greeting. The woman was the last to appear for the party she had set up, so now they could all settle in the living room, gossiping about the latest news. The dozen women that sat on the chairs and couches were good friends of hers since childhood, and as Brianna had become their Luna, the women had an even tighter friendship. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm." It was to be expected. Who wouldn't want to flatter their Luna, assuring for themselves a more prestigious position in the pack, as a consequence of their everlasting friendship? Brianna as well liked their presence and friendship, the non-stop compliments they directed to her at every chance they got, and the opportunity to flaunt all she had, were the things she lived for. "You look more and more beautiful by the day. Who could tell you're already a mother? Honestly, and as usual your clothes are from this year's collection. We really can't find anyone more beautiful than you. Even between the pups that are just now growing up, the alpha must love you more and more with each passing day." One of her friends immediately opened her mouth, just barely having seated herself on the couch, although inside the woman's mind, she was cursing at Brianna using all the bad words she could think of. The supposed Luna, who should have managed the money for the pack's sake, was splurging everything she could on herself. And, of course, she would not look like her mother. How could she? The alpha of their pack was the one who handled everything for his heir. Brianna did not lift a finger to do something for the young boy. A mother? What a joke. Her only merit was giving birth. Not to mention the love of the alpha towards her. The man would not see her for days at a time. He would, from time to time, be rumored to be at the arms of a different woman. Love her. The man could not even stand looking at her. But still, as the Luna, her influence was not small, even if it was only in front of the rest of the pack, and not the alpha. Indeed, really, who can compare to you? I am getting ashamed now that I thought to dress myself with clothes from last year's collection and finding they looked good enough, sighed the next girl, having similar thoughts to the previous girl. All this time, Brianna just shyly smiled, not agreeing or denying their words, so in the end silently admitted their claims. The flattery went on for a bit longer, as they all patiently shared similar words of praise, or at least agreed to someone else's statement. Finally, after several more compliments, accompanied by several more curses, the girls could fortunately discuss some other things. So they shifted the subject, not expecting for Brianna to also flatter them in some way. In the past she had done so, but ever since the mark of the alpha appeared on her neck she ceased doing it. "I got some rumors from the palace," excitedly informed one of the women, looking even more eager to share the information than she appeared previously when she complimented Brianna. "Oh, what is it?" asked the others, with the same excitement. Their friend had a cousin working in a kitchen in one of the adjacent buildings of the palace. The young woman was just an assistant in the kitchen, and was also farther away from the private quarters of His Highness, but would still hear some things from time to time about his private life, and would also inform her cousin about them. The information was not much, but for the curious women who wanted to know about the mysterious Luna that had been hidden by His Highness for the past few years, it was more than enough. The king had finally found his mate after so many years, but instead of customarily introducing her to the Alphys, he had hidden her deep inside the royal palace, deepening their curiosity of her identity more and more as time passed. The chattering group of friends had thought at first that the king was ashamed of his mate, and did not dare openly show her. But this rumor was soon dispersed. The hard-working king that normally traveled a lot, and handled so many things by himself in the past, changed overnight. Previously, His Highness, having no immediate family and no hobbies or other things he particularly liked doing in his personal time, had immersed himself in work, dealing with things even outside the scope of a king, even smaller problems that could be handled by others. As long as he had enough time, he would deal with them himself. But now each opportunity he got, he would delegate the work to others, and had also diminished his travels, accompanying his mate within their private quarters. Even his office was moved to his private quarters, as he dealt with the work that was imperious to be handled only by him there. He had also lavished the woman with expensive gifts, and followed her every whim, their sources told them. Not to mention, the council members had also met her and praised the woman, even though they never allowed her identity to be known. So the rumored motive of keeping her identity hidden changed, and now it became known that the king was so in love with his mate, having waited for her for decades, thus only wanted to keep her to himself for some years before allowing others to know of her. It seems that His Highness had found the idle maids gossiping a few days ago, as he was passing through the corridor. The two girls were talking about the Luna, wondering just how beautiful the queen is. When they realized His Highness passed by them, they froze in fear, thinking of what the king would do to them. Everyone knows just how ruthless His Highness is when angered, but the king only moved normally, going on ahead as though he did not hear a thing. Seeing him not stopping and with a face devoid of any reactions, they were finally able to sigh in relief. But their reassurance was short-lived. His Highness stopped his steps, just barely having walked 3 steps away from their position. The woman fervently explained, stopping a bit to build more suspense. And then, inquired the girls, intrigued, curious of the unfortunate fate of the 2 maids. The woman smirked, pleased with the attention that was on her and her words, before continuing. Then His Highness, without looking back at the 2, unexpectedly spoke. "She is the most beautiful woman I have ever laid eyes upon in the 100 years of my life. I hope this satisfies your curiosity." Before resuming his steps accompanied by his beta, they all squealed at the information, jealous of the woman who was his mate, as expected of the mate of the king. Nodded another woman, firmly believing the power the queen had on the king. "She is surely the most beautiful woman. How could she not be perfect, being paired with the strongest werewolf? Honestly, I was scared a bit 5 years ago when your sister accompanied the king to the Winter Ball. I was afraid that she would become his lover, by taking advantage of him having no mate, and inserting herself in his life. Who knows what your elder sister would do to us? Lying that we bullied her. She might have even asked the king to decimate us. Luckily, His Highness found his mate soon after," affirmed another woman, sighing. Celia's position as a watcher was frightening enough, but as the queen it was terrifying. As a watcher he had rules she had to follow, and could not just come and take revenge against them without any reasons. But as a queen, they had only joked a bit when she was in the pack. Okay, they might have also asked her in school, but those were just small things. Being close to the king, the petty woman could have influenced him against her home pack. You are right. Oh, speaking of your sister, is she still not talking with you? Agreed another woman. Then looked towards Brianna. Brianna tried to seem calm at their words. She had felt jealous of Celia at the winter ball all those years ago, and she was angered even more when she arrived home and her friends already knew about this. But soon no more news of Celia circled around, and she finally felt satisfied. Her older sister had only the capacity to be by the king's side because of her status as an alpha, but that advantage of hers became useless when His Highness found the true Luna. Oh, how she celebrated then, happy at her misfortune. We know nothing of her. Celia has changed her phone number and we had no way of finding it out. Even when Daniel started going to the academy the following year, he did not see her, because she was doing only practice drills outside the academy, and after that, she disappeared completely. Who knows where she is now? Honestly, I and my parents are quite worried about her, Brianna said with a hoarse voice, trying to sound sincerely worried. The other girls also appeared a bit dejected, sympathizing with her. But by now, all of them knew Brianna's true personality and doubted her every word. They had long ago come to the conclusion that regarding Celia, the meaning of Brianna's words should actually be interpreted the opposite way. So if the Luna said she was worried, then she was not worried at all about her older sister. So another rumor, one of the women started to say, clearing the small supposed awkwardness. Continuing the discussion. At the royal palace, Your Highness, you cannot keep stopping our meetings. They are most important for our race. How can you be such a tyrant in your ways? Emery reasoned with Solas, even raising his voice a bit in annoyance. The king had grown up in the elder's presence, so did not react at the disrespect of his tone. Emery, drop the subject already. The motive of your meeting was not something you should be discussing about. Seriously, how many more meetings are you thinking of holding? You should already know by now they are useless. Solos sighed. They are not. How could they be? The elder solidified his stance. I already have my queen. What other problem could you possibly have? The king asked, sighing again. Although he knew their motive, he preferred to act clueless. Finding Her Highness is only the beginning. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. There is another matter that follows that. Emery spoke quickly, before putting a file in front of Solas. Emery, you are getting ahead of yourself. I want some time with my mate, before some stinking brat takes her away, Solas said, before throwing the file carelessly on a nearby table, having been annoyed only looking at the title, without opening to see its content. Bulletproof Project for an Early Heir was written in bold letters on the file. These people had nothing better to do than mind his business. But Your Highness, it is necessary to have an heir. You are already 100 years old. The council bubbled his eyes in sorrow. You already have your queen. Can I not have her to myself for a bit? We are in our honeymoon period now. Solas reasoned. What honeymoon period? You had a honeymoon period of 5 years already. The elder resumed asking with a tough tone again, when he saw that Solas still was not bothered by his tears. No means no. Stop it. I will not have a child yet, Solas said, finally losing his patience. Then opened his mouth again, seeing as the elder finally quieted down, to close the discussion between them. He was itching to go back to Celia, but he could not say anything, as her familiar strawberry scent hit his nose. Looking towards the door, he saw the beautiful woman with tears in her eyes. Scared, Solas was already near her in the next second. My love, what's wrong? What happened? He asked gently but hurriedly, wiping her tears away. Do you not want to have children with me? Celia stutteringly said. Her emotions were getting the better of her these days, and his words only made them fluctuate even more. Of course I want. How could I not? I just want you to myself for a bit longer. He immediately reassured her. It was all the damn geezer's fault. Now Celia had misinterpreted his words. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She asked slowly, between weeping sounds. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. After some more decades we will have some children. As many as you want, he quickly stated, hearing the king's words. Emery was about to pass out, feeling faint at the mention of the word decades. He was already more than 200 years old, so he would possibly not be around anymore when the heir was finally born. How could Solas do that? Solas had thought that his words would calm the petite woman, but it only made her sadder as even more tears flowed on her face. What's wrong? Tell me. I will immediately fix it, Solas briskly said, not understanding what he had said wrong. I am pregnant, and you don't want the baby, she scolded with a hoarse voice, witnessing the exchange of words. The elder screamed in joy. It seemed that the goddess still watched over them, but contrasting to the joyous reaction of Emery, Solas appeared completely petrified. See, you don't want the baby, Celia said, seeing his reaction, and wanted to turn around and run, but she managed to only turn her head to the side, and not take a single step away, when Solas swept her off her feet, hugging her tightly. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Looking at her absolutely ecstatic, his plan had been to let Celia do what she was 30 years old. Her dream was to be a watcher, so after graduating he had told her she could also become a real watcher. The rest of her life as a queen would become more constricted, as she would be known by all, when he would introduce her to the werewolves, and could not accomplish her childhood dream anymore. He did not want to clip her wings, so at least 8 more years he would let her live free, fulfilling the watcher duty. At the same time, he also wanted to keep her unknown to the public, to have her to himself, considering their time together could possibly decrease, even more with her being a queen. The watcher job would also keep her busy and away from him sometimes, but the queen's duty was even more time-consuming. Then, as she reached the age of 30, he would officially introduce her, and the few moments of personal time she would have after. He planned to have her all to himself for another decade or so, only after they would have a baby. This was the original plan, but hearing her news, such thoughts flew out the window. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He would want their baby. It was the product of their love. Seeing he indeed did not resent the idea, as he kept hugging her, while placing kisses all over her face. Only then was she assured he was not trying to pacify her, but he was indeed happy. Are you all right? How do you feel? Do you want to eat? Do you feel dizzy? Are you okay? Should we go see the doctor? Solas immediately started to say flustered, after he kissed her a few more times. I am okay. Oh right, you shouldn't walk. What if you tire yourself out? Solas worriedly expressed, and immediately carried her in a princess embrace. I can walk. Wait, let me down. Celia immediately struggled, embarrassed because of his actions in front of the elder, whom just now she realized was still in the room. She also felt that Solas was exaggerating. It was only a pregnancy, it was not like she was injured. But no matter how she tried to get down, the man did not budge. Your Highness, of course you should not walk. What if something happens to the heir? You must be properly taken care of. We should call the maids. No, better the doctor. The elder also immediately reacted. She sighed and did not struggle anymore. She knew that the elder was anxious for an heir. He kept hinting about it, each time she saw the both of them together, but she thought he was more composed than how he looked now, because of his advanced age. Who knew that the elder was as exaggerated as Solas? I am really all right, Celia said a bit more forcefully to get her point across, just as Solas placed her on the couch. Your Highness, my king, then the introduction can wait no longer. The elder realized, as he was already making plans for the future. Yes, it seems that we can no longer hide my queen. Solor said, lovingly sitting beside her, and placing his hand on her still flat abdomen. Then I shall take my leave. There are so many things to prepare. Congratulations to both of you. Emery sincerely expressed with moist eyes, then bowed and quickly exited the room. Finally alone, Solors hugged her gingerly, afraid to not hurt the small precious new life. Will you blame me? I had promised you could be a watcher until you reached the age of 30. But now, he slowly whispered, no, the time you have given me, for my selfish dream, it is already more than enough. Normally, I should have assumed my position 5 years ago, but even without me asking you for time, you gave it to me, regardless of the consequences. Thank you. Celia spoke, and kissed Solos's cheek, with a tinge of red on her face. No, thank you for giving me a family, he immediately interjected happily, not accepting her words of gratitude, as he slowly kissed her forehead. Chapter 52. Family bonds at Fenrir's fortress. Some days later, are they here yet? Fenrir asked, tapping his fingers. He looked truly annoyed because of the visit of the unwelcomed guests, who would come each month to the fortress to spend the night of the full moon there. Not yet. I told you earlier they would come in time for dinner. There's still some time until then. The beautiful blue-eyed blonde casually informed him, unperturbed by his tapping. He waited some more. Then an hour later, he asked again if they arrived. For the 10th time. No, they still have not arrived. For someone who always seems annoyed by their visit, you sure are eager for it each time, the woman said, teasing him, a bit losing her patience. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I am not. I am only eager to get it over with, Fenrir replied, stopping his tapping, unpleased at the sight of her, which seemed to say that she had seen through his real thoughts. That couple came each month to calm the lycans because of the full moon, so he was only asking if they arrived so they could spend the night then be on their way again. Yeah, right. That's why you ordered for the kitchen to make your cousin's favorite food. She smirked, not at all afraid that he was not tapping his fingers. Enthusiasm, in the past, that tap of his would have scared anyone, but now she found it cute, like a small tantrum on his part. When did I? Steak with steamed vegetables are also my preferred meal. Who cares about what Solars likes? Fenrir said quickly, trying to rebuff her words. Really? Then why did you get upset when I cooked it for you some days ago? Your favorite meal. Indeed. She immediately cornered him, giving him no chance to deny her words. Moaned, Dad, called the small 3-year-old girl, standing in the doorway. She was rubbing her blue eyes with her small hand. Still half asleep. See, you woke up Hope with your loud voice. Clearly upset at the woman, Fenrir admonished her, immediately going towards the small girl and picked her lovingly in his arms. The woman only sighed, and did not continue arguing with him. She had spoken quietly. He was the one who had started raising the tone of his voice, while trying to deny her words. My lady, their highnesses are here. A woman came quickly, informing them of the visit. Fenrir only emphed, as if he was still annoyed, but was already going towards the hallway with the small girl in his arms. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Called the small girl at the sight of Celia, already opening her small arms, asking to be carried by her. Celia smiled at the small girl, and was about to hold up her arms to take her from Fenrir's arms, but Solars was faster than her and he took the girl over. Hello, baby girl, Solars said, with a small smile at the sight of the ebony-haired blue-eyed girl, who was an exact copy of both him and Fenrir. He immediately wondered if their small baby would also look the same as his niece. The girl was lovely, but it would still be better if the child resembled Celia. I wanted to hold her. Celia scolded, and tried again to take her from his arms. You cannot. You shouldn't carry heavy things. He shook his head. not letting her take over the girl. My baby girl is not a heavy thing. Watch your mouth. Fenrir immediately voiced upset. Keep your anger after you lose the chess game. We are already at 521 to 135. In my favor, Solo said, unconcerned by the man who was pointing at him. That's because you cheat. Fenrir redirected his anger at the stingy man who reminded him of the score each time. Fenrir, stop it. And just admit that you were defeated. The girl's mother voiced from behind him. That's not true, Fenrir wanted to deny. But the woman, who had long not been afraid of him, spoke over him like it was a normal occurrence. He was the leader of the lycans, keeping the order when Celia was not around. But in front of her it felt like that was not important at all. Anyway, heavy things. You couldn't be. Are you having a baby? The woman gleefully asked. Celia did not reply, and only shyly nodded, with Solo speaking for the both of them. Yes, we will have. That's why we also wanted for you, Ophelia, and for Hope to attend the coronation. We cannot hide Celia's identity any longer. Hey, you did not say anything about me. Fenrir realized, after a moment of shock at the news. Who wants you there? Solis ironically spoke, not looking at him, and was already walking through the hallway. You're right. That was why you reminded me to be sure to bring the invitation that had your cousin's name on it also, instead of just verbally informing them about it. Celia immediately said, rolling her eyes. I only said it because they would need the invitation to be let in by the guards. Solos denied, not stopping his steps. Really? They all know he's your cousin. Who wouldn't have let him inside the palace? You just did not want to tell it to his face. Not to mention, you also purposely specified to the council members for the coronation day to not be near the time of the full moon. She giggled, exposing his lie. Solos could not say anything more. Of course he would not reprimand the small woman, but hurried his steps, with Fenrir, Celia and Ophelia following behind. The day of the coronation, earlier in the morning. Your Highness, the Watcher Pack's members and your brother have arrived. Jenna informed, slightly bowing as soon as she entered Celia's room. You may rise. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Please inform them I will be shortly with them. The girls have only a few things left to do. Celia replied, as she was still having her hair done. Yes. The maid acknowledged, had already left her, stealing a small glance. The other maids had not finished preparing her, but she could already see her beauty shining through. She smiled, closing the door behind her, shortly after being informed that she would be coming to the living room in a few more minutes, where the Watchers and Daniel were waiting. The door opened. Through it, stepping inside the room, the neatly and beautiful dress queen of the werewolves appeared. All the men immediately rose on their feet and bowed. Stop it. I told you it was not necessary. Celia quickly tried to stop them. All these years her pack members had treated her normally when they were with other people, but they still bowed before her each time they saw her in private. Now, after the coronation, they would no longer not bow regardless of where they met. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Other than what was customarily required, they still treated Celia the same as before, which comforted her heart. They had not even reproached her for hiding the truth from them. Even when she tried to apologize, they did not let her, and were only happy to have her in their midst again. They had truly regretted that day, when they separated from her, not being able to prevent her kidnapping. You may rise. Celia sighed as she said the order. Otherwise they would not raise their head. You look lovely, Daniel voiced, before coming and hugging her. Daniel had arrived at the academy 4 years ago, and immediately sought his sister out, apologizing for the blunder from when his father took the phone from him. She forgave him then, knowing the effect their parents had on them as children, and did not take it to heart. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She took care of her brother, and had maintained a close bond with him for all these years. Luckily, her brother had chosen to become a pack doctor, against his parents' wishes to follow in his father's steps, and his studies took longer than other courses, so he was still near her all this time. Daniel released Celia, looking once more at his beautiful sister, finding out she was the queen, after she had confided in him and even meeting the king, which as a parenthesis was the most nerve-wracking meeting ever. She really seemed like a perfect fit to be the Luna of all the packs, and seeing her dressed in the grey sparkling dress, adorning a tiara, she really looked the part of a proper queen. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You look beautiful. All the guys also approved, admiring her appearance. Their alpha was always gorgeous, but now she took it up a notch. Thank you. She shyly thanked the men who would be her escorts for today. Have you had your breakfast? Celia asked, concerned. The preparations took a little bit longer, and the men had already waited for quite some time. Not to mention they had come so early in the morning. Nope. I could eat a piglet. Not at all abashed. Admitted. That joke is so old. Evans stated, rolling his eyes at Marcus. No, it's not. My mate always laughs at it. Marcus immediately defended. Of course she would. She is stuck with you. She has no choice but to. Evan monotonely spoke, although Marcus was already starting to raise his voice upset. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Settle down, you two. This is Her Highness's most important day. Act like proper watchers at least for today. Jake sighed, interrupting the two before they got out of hand. In the royal palace's outdoor garden, near the ballroom, Brianna was fidgeting around, having her mood soured by Ray-Ann, who had specifically told her to wait outside until the beginning of the ceremony for the queen. The Mart really could not stand being close to her, so because they had their chairs near one another, he had openly told her not to enter the hall until she had to. She did not want to, but with the threat that he would block her credit card she had to agree, and reluctantly step outside. She stomped her feet, pacing left and right, and even took a flower from time to time from a bush, before ripping it apart. Stop damaging the flowers. I heard Her Highness is very fond of them. Do you want someone to punish us? Diane asked her. The beta female was also annoyed when her daughter forced her to accompany her out. Who's gotta know? Everyone's busy, she said through gritted teeth, before ripping another flower. Brianna, someone might still see. Diane warned her again, but did not expect for her daughter to listen to her. Her mother's role near her daughter these days was exactly the role she held for the previous Luna. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She had to cater to her daughter's wishes, as the latter acted with her without even the tiny bit of respect a mother should receive from her child. If her daughter told her to come, she had to. If her daughter told her to leave, she also had to. Celia had never acted this way with her before. That child would always do everything for her mother. If she only opened her mouth. In a corner of her heart it truly saddened her, not having any contact with her oldest daughter. The way Brianna acted compared to Celia was different as night and day. She was not even interested anymore of the respect the position of being a mother of a watcher could bring. She only wished to see that child at least from time to time, to check up on her, but sadly she did not know where she was these days, and had no way of contacting her. It truly was a situation where a human only values and appreciates someone only after they had lost him or her. Would you stop nagging? Gosh, that's all you ever do. I brought you with me because it would have been awkward to exit alone. Stop talking already and just stay to the side. Like a good beta. Brianna spouted venomous words. She could not say anything to that man because he would take the money away, so she would at least vent on someone else. Diane did not talk anymore, and really just stood to the side, wiping a small tear from the corner of her eye. Even the mood and curiosity to see the queen had been dampened by her daughter. Brianna removed another flower from its stem forcefully, crushing it to the ground, and was about to take another one from the bush when she sensed the most amazing scent. With her eyes widening, she quickly followed the direction of the smell, before locking eyes with a man even more handsome than Rayanne. The tall man had stepped outside for a break when he sensed his mate, and quickly came in the direction of the smell. Seeing her eyes, he slowly murmured mate, as she mirrored his response. Her eyes glistened at the sight of the alpha-ranked male that exuded nothing but power. With a small smile, she wanted to approach the man who was still a few feet away, seeing him as her salvation. Even if Rayanne did not love her, her mate would surely accept everything about her. She could finally have both love and power, and especially have a pampering man who would do everything for her sake. She truly had an alpha for a mate, just as the prophecy stated. If only she had waited for a while longer. But it was still all right. As long as she found him, it was still okay. Smiling a bit at her, the man's mood was ruined when he saw another alpha male's mark on her neck. The mark could clearly be seen because of the low-cut dress, a choice for a dress that Brianna selected just for this particular reason, to flaunt her position as a Luna. He had waited for his mate for his entire life. He had even kept away from his childhood friend whom he had deeply adored, because he felt it would not be fair to his future mate. But the latter had not done the same. She had accepted another male. It was clear to him what kind of a person the woman was at a glance. "What is your name?" the man expressionless asked, when the woman approached him at a few inches away, trying to not appear disgusted to find the information he wanted. "Brianna Blair." "And you?" Brianna, and her eyelashes shyly, as if forgetting the fact that her last name was no longer Blair. "I, Justin Colt, Alpha of the Blue Moon Pack, reject you Brianna Blair as my mate and future Luna," the Alpha immediately said, already thinking of going straight back to his pack after the ceremony. His childhood friend's mate had ruthlessly rejected her some years ago for a woman much like the one in front of him. So now he could openly pursue her. "I don't want to," Brianna cried, feeling her heart broken into pieces as she fell to the ground. She gasped for air, trying to figure out why he had wanted to reject her, when he seemed happy at first. "Woman, accept the rejection right now," Justin said, using his higher-ranked werewolf voice, a command Brianna had no choice but to follow, even if she struggled to not open her mouth. Finalizing the rejection, the man turned around to walk away. "Why?" she desperately asked with a loud voice. "Who would ever accept a mate marked by another?" the man stated, not even turning around as he walked away, unconcerned by the woman who was gasping for air because of the rejection. "It's not fair. It's not fair," she said, hitting the ground, as her mother came near her, trying to help her up. The woman had tried to advise Brianna in the past to wait for her rightful mate, but her daughter had been so fixated on Rayanne that she did not listen no matter what Diane said, and even convinced her there was no point to waiting.